class for today is just more of an introductory class. Sometimes we need to take one step at a time, and it's the first step. So I would say that you should continue to follow some of our conversations that we're going to be having on this platform continuously. And you can also follow us on the Instagram page, which I'll probably share with you. So that being said, thank you so much for joining. So for this class, we just try to understand some of the basics. And what we mean by the basics is we go to try to have like the foundational level. And understanding foundational level means that we'll try to understand what are some of the basic things that we can do with data analysis and data science, right? Understand some of the basic tools, as well as try to know what are the possibilities for you, because I know that some of you that are coming here today, you have expectations, and because you have expectations, you need to know what is in it for you. Know some of the employer recognized certifications, because one of the things we'll do at the end of this class is also try to see how we can find ways to support you to be able to sit for some of these certifications as well. So another thing we're trying to do is how to help you kickstart that career as a data analyst or as a data scientist. So these are some of the learning outcomes that we have in stock for you, and that we have planned for you throughout this particular class. So I wouldn't know if there are any questions from anyone that you would want to ask based on this. You can please post it in the chat for now, so that we can follow through with you at a later stage. So that being said, I'd like to quickly just jump into it, dive into it fast, so that we understand what is data. So some of us might be wondering, what exactly is data? Data, right, is the new oil, like my colleague mentioned earlier on, is the new oil. And there is basically no information that any organization wants to make successfully that they will not try as much as possible to use what I call data to make informed decision. So a clear example of that is you want to understand the market, how or where you can sell some of your products. So the first thing I want us to understand is there is virtually no information that you want to make, including sales, including HR related information. If you are in the HR space, if you're in the medical space, you have to make informed decision, even based on data. And that data that we all see, they're usually very, very unorganized. I can tell you for free that when you see like a real database with unorganized data, you'll be wondering, this thing all looks unsurmountable. You can make meanings out of it. You don't understand what exactly it is. So one of the things that we'll be doing in this class is see how we can help you make meaning out of your data. So basically, what is data? It is raw, it is unorganized facts and figures and dimensions that you can process into meaningful insight. It is the building block that helps us understand the world around us. That is the reason why you will find out that there is a data that is powering something behind the scene anytime you log on or you chat with your friend on Facebook. Sorry, you chat with your friend on WhatsApp, and suddenly he's not your friend on Facebook, but suddenly you just find out that, oh, there's a friend request from him, not like he originally requested. There is an interconnection between the fact that that person has been able to connect with you somewhere, and they're also trying to find ways to connect with you elsewhere. So what am I saying is that it is the building block for understanding the world around us. And we can collect data from different sources. We can collect data from Excel, from our survey, from forms that people fill online. Even the sensors in our house. For some of us who have smart that have smart devices such as our refrigerator, as our TV, our social media, sorry, our TVs, security system, they all have something that collects data for you, and you can actually process that data. That's why you probably see that for some who use like smart fridge, if you if something if your the water in your, or maybe if your filter is bad, right, there is something that prompts you from there. Or if you've not changed your filter over a period of time, there's something that prompts you. That means there is a data that was fed into that particular sensor that make you now understand in human form that there is something that needs to be fixed. That's just another example. So let's even now go ahead and try to classify, or rather see how we can do some classification based on data. Data basically can be classified um, in several ways if you want, but for the purpose of this class, I am just doing my classification based on structured data, unstructured data, semi-structured data, right? And this is just like a basic foundation. So the structured data is a type of data that is organized in a predefined format. Can we please mute ourselves? Give me 1 second to try and check my security setting not to make. Okay, I think people will not be able to unmute themselves now, so we should be good. So I will share my screen once again. Here we go. So we were actually at structured data. Structured data is that type of data that is organized in a predefined format. And we need to understand what I mean that is organized in a predefined format. And, it usually has like its fixed schema, like it's in rows and columns. Take, for example, um, you can say that you want to know how many female we have in this HR data, or how many male we have in this particular data in a spreadsheet. So that is usually an example of that. So an example might also include, customers data in database where you see their financial transactions and so forth, and so on and so forth. So the unstructured data, um, this is the opposite of the structured one, right? This doesn't usually follow a specific format and is usually very text heavy, and um, it might include some form of transformation that you will have to do on that particular data to be able to make it more structured. So some example might be things like our social media posts. You virtually agree with me that if I make a social media post today, it's not the same thing as the same social media post I'm going to make tomorrow. And if I want to harvest such kind of data, use it to understand certain patterns, or if you are likely to be able to take, for example, politicians use this a lot. And you might probably not know that for every time you post your political perception or things on social media, these things are being harvested and used to help politicians in election win their election. Take, for example, um, uh, election is currently ongoing in Canada right now. When people go online and then they post some of their frustrations about certain government policies, they are able to get some of these things to synthesize some of this information, which is very unstructured, find ways to understand what are the challenges, are the concerns of the people that they can use as part of their policy formulation and all of that. So these are examples of that: social media posts, emails, images, videos, and audio files. These are all example of unstructured data. Semi-structured data is the type of data that has some form of organization, but not rigid schema. And it might probably include, I don't want to go complex, but for those who understand JSON files or XML, that is a good example of our type of data for semi-structured data. So let's quickly talk about data analytics. So data analytics is the science of extracting valuable, and I mean it, extracting valuable insight from raw data to make it a more clear and synthesized information that helps us solve some of our problems that we see generally or daily, right? So if you want to know how many sales you've had for, let's say, if you're selling food, and you want to see you're operating a restaurant and you have certain customers and you want to have a sense of the location of where those people are ordering food from and you're delivering that food from. I think that if you have that data, it will even help you have informed decision to understand the segment of people around that area, and maybe even help you to see that, oh, maybe this might be a good opportunity for you to open a new restaurant in that area so that people can maybe rather walk in and eat, since they love your food and they get to order for it from a far distance. They can walk in, eat, and you can reduce certain costs for the customer, and you're able to maximize profit. So these are like examples of how we can use data to drive decisions. We can use it to have competitive edge. We can use it to have more efficiency, and we can also use it to optimize our sales and things like that. And it can also help us to be very innovative because we have information at our disposal. So as a data analyst, what will be your job? You'll be analyzing existing data to uncover trends, and some of the proficiency or tools that will be required of you is to use tools like SQL, Excel, data visualization tools such as Tableau, Power BI, and things like that, so that you can present such kind of information in a very simple way um, for either your clients or those who you're working with or the senior management. Now, as a data scientist as well, one of the things that you will do, and I'll try to share the difference between a data scientist and a data analyst, and maybe in between, if you also want to ask me some other questions about who a data engineer is. There are several subsets within the data sphere that you can do, but we are trying to start for those who are trying to get involved in the space now, that we feel that you'll be comfortable at the level of data analysis and data sciences. That's why we are starting at this point for you. So for a data scientist, what will be your job? You'll be building a lot of models. You'll be building a lot of algorithms to predict possible trends, solve complex maths problems, do a little bit of some machine learning, and it will require that you have some additional programming skills such as Python, and you should be able to use things like R. There are also other languages that you can use as well, but for the focus of some of the things we'll be teaching, we'll be focusing more on Python and R in this class. So you might also be wondering how, despite understanding all of these things, what is the financial incentive for you? You don't just want to get involved or say you want to become a data analyst, you want to become a data scientist, and you don't know how much is involved for you. You need to know what is going to come to your pocket. At least every human that I know on earth, no matter how responsible you are, there is always a financial need. And so if there's a financial need, there will be a way where you will need to be incentivized with financial gain. So let's break it down. I know that we have a couple of some of our folks who are from the US and who are here. And the question will now be, what would be your salary range? So from entry level, you might probably start earning from things around 60 to about 120, depending on your level of experience. One of the things that we'll be trying to do in this class is to make sure that you are able to gain your feet from zero to hero. So on that scale, that's how the salary is. And the good thing also is that if you're in Canada, you can also do remote jobs and you can earn the salary. The good thing for you is that when you're converting this salary to Canadian dollars, I think you'll be having a very good time. And I encourage you to also apply for remote jobs when this opportunity arises. For those in Canada, this is the range in which salary flows sometimes, right? And so you can get up to a peak of about 140 and above as a data scientist, and also probably a little more on as a data analyst. So there is a point of convergence for both of them as well. So I encourage you to explore that opportunity. So we took our time to try to make you understand how you can see the reason why this is in demand. You can see that we have, for just Power BI in the United States, we have about 13,000 roles. For those related to SQL, it's about 240. For data science related roles, you have about um 76. And for those that are related to data analytics, right, um, about 137,000. And so you can see that these roles exist, and it is just a job away waiting for you to just grab it. So my question to you, what are you still doing? Why are you not trying to get into this field right now and see how you can make the best opportunity out of this and get a job in this space? So that being said, um, I know that most of us would always like to show validation for the job, like our skill sets, right? And one of the validations that most people try to do is basically is one, see how they can get certifications on certain vendors such as Microsoft, Amazon, Tableau, Google Analytics, and a host of couple other certifications that you can get to know on. And so basically, these are just validations for your skill sets, right? For me, I have a couple of certifications. Today is not a day where I would have to talk about some of my certifications, but basically, it still does not remove the fact that the skill sets which you're going to learn in this class is what is needed. So one of the things we will try to help you do to see is work with you to see how you achieve those skill sets and how you're able to validate and see how we can help you to validate your certification. I get validation through certifications, right? So some of the tools that we use for data analysis is basically things around R programming, Tableau, Python, Excel, Power BI, SPSS, SAS, um, Splunk, Apache Spark, and a couple of other things, tools that we use like that in data analysis and data science. So these tools are very important, and they are tools that we can use to help us to be able to, flourish in that space. So one of the things I wanted to call to your attention about the reason why we thought of having specific tools and not trying to teach you all these tools that you are seeing here, specific tools that we want to use to prepare you for the market, right? Is that we want you to be able to be competitive enough. So I noticed that most of us are from North America here. And one of the things that we try to do a bit of comparison for is that we realize that most people, specifically from North America, who are trying to look for a job, when we look at some of the job description, that we see that most people are usually being requested to have the skill set of a Microsoft Power BI, right? And so these are like things that we want to call your attention to. And we also included this as part of the tool that we'll be teaching in this class. So let's just get a little bit hands-on and start understanding a little bit of some of the things that we will be doing later in this class. But I just wanted to just lay some foundation. So first of all, we'll be talking about SQL. I'm sure you've seen me talk about SQL in almost everything I've said. So the question now is, what is SQL? It is a structured query language. Um, it's a kind of language that helps you speak to database, right? And the way I see it, or the way I try to explain SQL to anyone is that see SQL as an English, or rather a English language that you type in English, right? And you use things such as your verb and your phrases. That's the way I tend to explain SQL to people. And what do I mean by the word, or what do I mean by verb? You will notice that SQL usually use things like create, read, update, delete. Those are action words. Those are like verbs, right? And so we use some of these things in data analysis when we do it. 1 second, please. Now, here's an example of SQL that I wanted to just show you how a query was being run from an unstructured data that you probably would have noticed, right? Here's a table. It shows you rows and colon, and you say that you have animal type, cat, dog, hamster, and probably the name of that animal and the age of those animal and probably the kind of food they eat, right? And if I have to run an SQL statement, right? That's why I told you that it's a basic English language that you just need to understand. I will say, I want to select, coming, I will bring up my annotation here. I want to select here. I want to select name. From the table, pet store. The name of this table that you are seeing here is pet store. Please ignore my very wonderful scribbling, right? And then I say select from pet store, this table called pet store. Select from pet store. This is pet store and this is pet store. Where the animal type, this one, is dog. It is now going to give me everything that has to deal with the dog, right? And so if I do that, I'll be able to see everything that has to pertain to the dog. That is how simple SQL queries are. So some of the things that I also brought here just for you to see is to see that it is more of a verb, right? Is that we use things like select to retrieve, insert to add to something, update to modify something, delete to remove, create to make a construct, drop to maybe delete, destroy or eliminate. So those are like examples of things I wanted to call your attention to. And the reason why I wanted to say that SQL is absolutely very simple, right? And I think that summarizes that so that we can get into more of a practical class today, because I wanted us to touch more on some basics in Excel. And then in the following class, we will move over to things like SQL, Power BI, and some introduction to R and Python, right? So now Python, let me just explain to you, is more of a high level language that helps you provide simplicity and more readability to some of your unstructured data. For those of us who might be in the space, we also use Python for ETL purposes. What I mean by ETL purposes is it helps us to do some extraction from our data set. And when we use this to extract things, we are able to use it for more like an ETL pipeline, right? Generally, I would just say that it's more of a procedural programming. It's a straightforward. When you're writing a code, it's usually more in sequence of certain instruction, right? And basically, it works more on functions, variable, and how you execute some of those functions and variable. And you might not be so much of an expert in Python, but we'll try to make this class as easy as possible for you to be able to catch along. But again, if you want to be more of a data scientist, then I would recommend that we engage more on this aspect of the course, which is Python and the rest of them like that. So the next one I want to talk to us about is R language, right? R is open source as well. Um, it's also something similar to Python because this also has data frames. Later in the class, I'll try to explain to you what data frames are, but for the purpose of this class, I'm not going to go a bit very technical because I want us to understand basic concepts before we go into that. So that's on R. So now the next question, and the next thing I want to also talk about is basically conversation around our boot camp, which we'll probably have at a later stage. But I wouldn't know if AY is still on this call. Maybe he can jump on and quickly talk to us about this. AY, you see on the call? Okay, so one of the things that we have planned after this information session that we are having with you is to have a real-time boot camp. And one of the things that we'll be talking about during the boot camp is to see how you can gain some expertise in Microsoft Excel, Power BI, SQL, R programming, Python, and see how we can help you develop a portfolio that you can show potential employers that you can use for for maybe job interviews and things like that. And you can also go to this website, triple A consult slash data analytics slash and dash bootcamp to register as well. And you can also pick up the number on this screen for you to be able to I'm going to highlight that phone number here for you to be able to reach out and maybe make some additional inquiries. So what we plan to do is we plan to start that boot camp by May 31st. And the class we usually hold on Wednesdays and Saturdays in the morning, but Wednesdays in the evening, so that we can accommodate everyone on different time zones, especially for some of our folks in North America, so that we can have a wonderful time talking about this class. So you can go to the website Triple A Consult and do your registration. So another thing that I wanted to call your attention to, you can see you can see bigger details on the screen now, is that if you want to be part of the boot camp, it's going to cost, for those in the US, it's going to cost about 1,350 USD. But for those in Canada, it's going to cost about 1,800. And that's because we have a 10% discount, and full payments are appreciated. Instrumental payments are also appreciated as well. So we just wanted to call your attention to to that. And I will leave this on the screen for a while in case you quickly want to get that information. You can maybe do a screenshot of this while I just wait for like 5 seconds or more. So one of the things I also wanted to mention is that you can make bank transfers via Zelle or Interact with your credit card. And you could also select Affirm or Camera at checkout with multiple instrumental payments option. So I would also advise that maybe you follow on Instagram to get more information on this, as well as Twitter as well. So having said that, I would want to talk more about this current practical sessions that we are having, which is going to hold starting today, April 12th, April 26th, May 10th, and May 24th, right? It's always going to hold around 11 a.m. This time for about an hour to about an hour, 30 minutes. And the Zoom link is also on this screen for you to grab in case you want to share it with some other friends. So what is going to happen next? Let's take some time to learn on our own, get to do this free sessions where I will be showing you practical classes. But I will start some of the practical classes today. And reach out if you have any question on this. So if you have any question before I jump to the practical class now, which we are starting about now, please, if you want to unmute and quickly say that, ask any question, please just let me know. Or you can type it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself now as we're going to be starting. So are there any questions so far? If there are no questions, so let's quickly move on to the real reason why we're here. In this class, I'm going to be sharing certain data sets with you that we'll be using for this class. And that data set is going to be the data set is going to be on immigration. And we still have other data sets that we will be talking more about in the course of the next class. So take, for example, we might use the HR data here. Sorry, we might use the immigration data here. In the next class, we are likely going to use the HR data as well. And we just want to try as much as possible to cover several fields for people to be able to understand the possibilities that they're going to have with these classes. So I would like to introduce you to Excel first. So I will bring out my Microsoft Excel. Okay, this is a data for, this is a health data for vaccine. I will keep this away. We are likely not going to be using this, right? So I hope you all can see my screen. If you can't see my screen, please just call my attention to that in the chat, and I will try and support you on that. So this is an Excel interface, right? Over here in Excel, where you see me typing A1, this section just above this, where you see A1, is usually known as a name box. So if I want to go to a different selected cell, so this is a cell here, right? This is a cell, this is a cell. And we have rows and columns, right? And if I want to say I want to go to a different cell now, all I need to do is, let's say I want to go to something like A14. I will just type A14. and it will jump to that cell. So that is the name box. That is the function that you have for the name box here. You also have the formula bar, which is over here. The formula bar is over here. And you also have, can you all see my screen? Can you see my screen?
Sorry, can you repeat the first part, the beginning?
Which part is that?
That is the hay one. How you got to 14?
Oh, I got to 14. Can you
Yeah.
see, can you currently see the screen I'm viewing right now? You can see um this. So I'm going to be sharing this data set with you now. I'll post it in the chat just so you can follow everything I am saying. Copy link. So I'm going to do this, send it to you guys in the chat, and you can download and you can also follow alongside, right? So if you can open your Excel, can you see my screen now? Can you see my Excel?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, I just wanted to be sure. So this used to be in the cell A1. Can you see A1 here? And I wanted to just jump because in a real life scenario, I might have data that is so long that I want to just jump to that particular row or column, right? Or a particular cell. And if I remember that cell number, all I need to do is maybe just type it. So I can just type A20, and you see that it will jump to this particular row now, right? I'm in 20, but I'll go back to 1 now, right? So I'll type A20, and you notice that this jumped to A20, right? And you can see that it's jumping to A20. So that's just showing you about the cells, right? Now, the next thing I also wanted to talk to you about is how you can use your ribbons here and then your ribbon groups as well as the formula bar. So I'll go back to Excel now. Here, where you see the FX is known as the formula bar. This particular place here, where you see the FX, it is known as the formula bar. And I can type formulas inside this bar, right? And it will reflect there. And I can also type certain things I want. So I can type my name, Caleb, without the formula, and you still see it there, right? And I can type, let's say, AY, and you still see it there. So that's just an example. Now, these are all the ribbons. So all of these ribbons have different functions, and we'll be talking more about it. Some of them, they have formatting functions. Some of them have ways where you can insert data. You can insert picture. Some of them have ways you can draw. Some of them have how you can do your page layout, how you can do your formula. Most of them mathematical formulas, logical formulas, and how you can also clean up your data and do some data transformation here. That's what this data tab is for, and a couple of other things. Okay, so I see lots of yes, 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 yes. So the first thing we want to do now is let's try and see how this data is. For me, I feel this data is semi-structured, and I try to, first of all, have an understanding of my data. So I'll highlight this as blue just for us to be able to see the header very well. And I will try to make this bold just for us to see the header. Now, How many of us noticed that for this employer ID, that the numbers are not ordered in the way they are supposed to be ordered? So one of the things that I want to show us now is how we can sort, right? How we can sort. So how many of you notice that this number is not ordered? Take, for example, we have 297 here, and we have 150 here, we have 128 here, and we also have 275. These numbers are not supposed to be scattered here. So assuming I want to order this by employee ID, what do I need to do? Very simple in Excel. The first thing I'll do is I'll come here. I'll say sort this from A to Z, and it will sort it for me from A to Z. And it will ask me if I want to expand the selection so that when it is sorting everything in this column, it will also rearrange every other thing in other columns. So I'll sort it this way. What did you guys notice? Can anyone?
Has changed. Yeah, the whole letter has changed from the beginning of the employee ID down to the last end.
Okay, it has changed, right? For the employee ID. Great. So that is just to let you understand the power of sorting, right? And because I've been able to sort, do you know that I can also, I'm going to do Control Z now. What Control Z means is I want to undo, or I come here and I click undo to undo the last thing I did. So this was the former state where we are, right? So I've just shown you the power of how to sort. Now, the next power I want to show you is the power of how to filter, right? So I can decide to click on one of these column. Let's say I want to see how many employee that rarely travel, or I want to see how many employee that we have in a specific department. I think that is a better appropriate one. I'll just come here and also click on filter. What did you notice?
The arrangement changes.
No, arrangement hasn't changed, but something popped up here where my mouse is. Like a filter popped up, right? Like an arrow popped up.
Can we
Drop
repeat?
down.
Can we repeat it?
You want me to repeat it? So I'll do
Yeah.
Control Z now. Control Z, right? Which allows me to undo what I've done before. So the next thing I want to do now is I want to,
Right.
I've been asked a question by my manager saying that I want to know how many people we have in our sales department. But how do you think I'm going to be able to get that? How many people in our sales department? How do you think I will do that? I can do it in two ways, right? I can do it first by sorting, which is one of the things I shared with you. So that if I share it, sort it now, it will sort it in alphabetical order for me. But do you know that I have still not solved the problem? I still can't tell you how many people are in sales department. So I will do Control Z now. So in this sales department, I want to understand how many people are in sales department. So I'll come here to filter. I'll also come to this place, come here to filter. And as soon as I come here to filter, you notice that it has this small drop down arrow. When I click this drop down arrow, I can now filter and say, I just want to see only people who are in the sales department. And you see, when I clicked on it, what did you notice? If I scroll down, did you see any other department there?
No. No.
Great,
No.
great. So that's what I want to achieve. So that's why I'm trying to share with you how to do sorting, and
And
how
filter.
to filter.
Filter.
Yeah. So that's on the one hand. I will revert back to the way our data is before, and I'll maybe do Control Z to remove that filtering that we have there. So that's filtering for you. Now, the next thing is, how do we separate data? Right? We might have certain data that might be too locked up that we need to get to the basic to understand how we can separate that data. Take, for example, I'm going to do something here. I'm going to create names, right? I will say Caleb Ogundele, and I will say AY Kwe, AYK, right? Now, AY Ogundele, let me just use AY Ogundele. And I would also use, let's say, another name here called, who do we have? Who can volunteer their full name?
Fei Shola Keremi.
Fei what?
Shola Keremi. Akeremi. AK.
Shola
Akeremi. AK.
Remy.
REMI. Yeah.
Okay. So with the way you are looking at this data now, do you feel that this data is complex? I'll take this to a new place so you can see it and understand. This is names. Don't you think this data is complex?
Yes, it is.
So why do you think it's complex? I'm going to share that idea with you. If,
Yeah, because
yeah,
yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead, go ahead. No, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so take, for example, my manager comes to me and say, I want to see everyone by their surname. As you can see, this data is all squashed up, and there's no way I can tell you these are people by their surname, right? And
Yeah.
let me also do one here. Joshua, and do Pam, Joshua, right? So just to make it more names, right? Now, what did you notice that the usual name, their first name can be Caleb, but we cannot get their surname out. So for us to be able to separate that data, what we need to first of all do is select A, right? This colon A, and go to data here, right? And say we want to separate surname from first name. And how do we do it? We will now say we want to do text to colon. We will select delimited and we'll click on next. Now, what did you notice that is the common denominator that separates first name and last name and any other name here? Space. Great. Excellent. So instead of using tab, I will use space. Did you notice that even inside this place is that it has tried to separate the names for me, right? So I'll click next and I'll click finish. And here you go. I can now relabel them and say first name, surname, name, other names, right? That is how it is. We can also have another scenario, which I also want to show you. I'm going to do Control Z now, as usual, to undo this. And I will create another colon here, but I want to put a common denominator there. If I come here again and I say I go to data and I say text to colon and I click delimited and I remove it from space and say comma. Did you notice that the comma is giving me a different output? Instead of also separating Shola Akinremi, it did not, because all the commas were right in front of just the first name alone from the last data. Let me show you that data in case you want to see. This is how the data is before it was separated, right? And because the comma, which is the common denominator of most, how you separate most data, um, is that there will be a common denominator that will delimit most of the things. It could be in form of semicolon, it could be in form of comma, it could be in form of space. And even if it is any other character, right? If it's question mark, you can do it this way too and put question mark here, right? So that's just an example for you on how to separate data, right? So I've been able to separate that now. So now the question now is, we've been able to separate data. How do we bring this data back? Assuming that something like Control Z does not exist, right? That is the place where we now start using things like formula. And in the course of this conversation, I am going to be teaching us things around formula, but I'll come back to this. But before I come back to how we will bring back this data together, I mean this one and this one, or maybe I should delete this one and just continue to use this one. Let's separate this one and just keep it there. Delimited. You notice that when I applied comma, it didn't separate anything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the common denominator is not it's not that, so it's I have to use space in this one. So I'll click, if I know what I'm doing, I just click finish. I don't need to click next, right? But let me just delete this Academy and just leave it like this. So the next one I want to teach us is how to do basic, just basic calculations, right? Basic calculations. And what I mean by basic calculation is how, let's say we have multiple numbers, right? So let me try and extract some numbers here. Can you please mute yourself? Okay, let's just do it in a simple way here, right? So I want to create basic numbers. So I'll just do 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's just say this is someone's work experience. 2, 3. Do you know that I can do what they call flash fill and try to fill up this number up to 23 if I want, right? So all I need to do is, first of all, highlight all of this. And you see this small thing underneath here. I will drag it down and I can use it to fill up the number up to 22 if I choose to, right? And I can also create another number here. Let's say we are starting from 50. And if I do it, you will notice a difference. It gave me constant number, right? Instead of giving me 1, 2, 3 in an ordered number like this, but because I did this one separately on just one column, Excel has some form of intelligence that will tell you that, oh, maybe you just want to duplicate one specific number. But if I do my Control Z as usual, and I say I want to put it 51, and I try to highlight the two of them before dragging. Excel will think and will feel that I am trying to tell it that I am trying to flash fill this number up to, let's say, 72, right? Yeah, or 71. That's the way it's going to say it. So what I've just been able to do right now is being able to show you a little bit on flash filling and all of that. But the purpose of this is not to show you how to flash fill, but to show you how exactly you can do basic calculations. So let's say we want to add 1 and 50 together in Excel without stressing ourselves. What we need to do is say, to start a formula all the time, we can either type our formula here in the open cell is equals to, right? Click on this cell and then put a mathematical formula, mathematical symbol that we want to use, and then click on this again, and then just do tab. You will see that it will give me an answer here. Now, if I want to replicate this same formula down to the final one here, all I just need to do is drag it downwards, and it will give me the answer, 52 plus 51, 53. Now, let me now assume that I want to change this one and use it as subtraction. You notice that it gave me a different number. However, it didn't change the rest of the number. Why? Because I still need to drag all of this downwards for it to be able to work, right? Um, yeah, those are the answers. So if I choose to create another column here, let me say I want to add 20, you see that this minus 49 is going to change, right? 300, you see that these numbers are changing. So in my other numbers, if things are changing, my formula will remain constant and won't change over a period of time. Yeah. So that being said, this is basically for basic calculation. And if you want to know all the symbols that we can use, you can use symbols like plus, minus. You can use division. Division will be by doing a slash, and you see that it will give you that stuff. And if I want to do it by multiplication, I will use the multiplication symbol, which is the asterisk, and you see that it will give me those numbers, right? So these are just examples of how you can use formulas. And all this formula that I showed you now is, you can always type them in this formula bar, right? See, if I type, I know I have this particular number and I want to add just everything here together to get it here. I can put my cell here, go to the formula bar and say is equals to this plus cell B1 plus cell C1. I shouldn't be getting that. Let
Plus
me.
instead of you wrote equals.
You use equal to instead of plus.
Thank you. You
You're
see,
supposed to use plus. Yes. You're supposed
you
to use
guys are
plus
good.
instead of equals to.
You
Yeah.
guys are good. Thank you. You picked it up. So you can see that we have that. And if I do that, you see it keeps reflecting on every other thing. So, but you notice that I did this plus manually. Do you know I can also do this in an automated manner without having to stress myself? All I need to do is I light this together, and then I come to my own page, you see something like auto sum. And I'll just click on sum. And you notice it gave me the same thing. However, it wrote it in a different way by writing a formula for me. So you notice that it wrote something called is equals to sum, right? So if I drag it down, it will still give me answers to things that I need to know, right? However, the thing I want to call your attention to here is the sum is equals to sum. So these are ways that we write formulas, right? So which will now lead me, after showing you this very basic math formula, to now lead me to the previous screen where we were before. How do we join these names together? So there is something called concatenation. Concatenation is the ability to be able to join two different fields together into one field, right? Maybe for lack of better word of me explaining it. That's how I would explain it. Concatenation is like you're trying to join something together. Now, I'll show you practical example here now. So remember that when we wanted to do a formula, we had something like, I'm going to call this first name, last name. We had something here where we can put something in our formula bar, which I told you here, or we can type our formula here, or we type it here. So I'll type here in formula bar and I'll say, and one of the things I wanted to call your attention to is that if you want to start any formula whatsoever, the first way to start it is to always type the equal sign, the equal sign. That is the way to start a formula in Excel. So I'll say is equals to concatenate. And you see that as I'm doing it, Excel is so intelligent that it is already giving me an intelligence of what I want. So all I need to know is know few words about things I want to do. So I'll type concatenate, right? And you see that under the concatenate here is asking me what text do I want to add to concatenate together. So I have text 1 and text 2, and I can even add as much text as I want. So I'll click on first name. You notice that in this is already telling me to put a comma. I'll put a comma so that it allows me to add the next one. I'll put this, right? And if I still have any other thing I want to add, it will still, I can add it by adding a comma, right? But I won't do that. I will just press my tab here and it will close it off for me. And I'll be able to see the final result of concatenation. So can you see now that my first name and last name, everything is concatenated together? However, you will notice that there is an error. It's not like it's an error per se, that it's not showing with space, right? That is not an issue. Another way to do this is to say is equals to concatenate the first text, comma, and I will put an apostrophe, do space, and close it, and then put the second one. So what I used that apostrophe to do was to use it to create space. That's why you can see that there's a space here that I'm quoting. So I'm not sure if you can see it, but I'm trying to quote a space here. There's a space here. So that's what I'm trying to. And if I want to also put maybe something in between that, I can say I want to put dash instead of space, or put multiple dash dash instead of space. And you see it will still reflect. Can you see first name? And this is a way to separate all of that. So I'm just using this to give you an example. Now, I'm going to delete this from that HR data that we're trying to work on. These are just basics, right? So I will say that for this particular surname, Ogundele, I want to make it all capital letters. I do not want it to be lowercase. All I just need to do is type is equals to and type upper and select this colon and press tab. Sorry. Or close it, close the brackets and press tab. You can see that it's giving me all uppercase letter, right? I can also do the same thing for the lowercase and say I want everything in lowercase, and I'll say is equals to lower, and I will do this. I'll close the brackets, and you can see that everything is now in lowercase, right? So that's another example for us. If I also want to make it look like this again, right? I can pick, all I need to do is type is equals to proper. And, I'm selecting this colon that is lower, and I'll press brackets, tab, and you see that it has reverted it back for me. So that is an example that I wanted to call our attention on, and on things that we can do, right? So that's on the one hand. We now have that our data, that HR data that I've shown you. So I'm going to go a little step further before we close our class. I am going to delete all of this. We don't need it again. I now want to use that HR data. I only use this as a side example for you to understand. So how many of you noticed that I'm deleting some things underneath here? These are called sheets. I can create sheets here, create as many sheets. So if I create sheets, several sheets, I can create up to 20 sheets with different data sets in it. And when I save that single file, it is called a workbook in Excel, right? So I will delete this, I'll delete this, and I will delete this. Now, this is our HR data that I want to use to work with us, right? And I will reduce this formula bar so we can see quite a number of things. And can any of you make sense of this data at all? The way it is? Would you want to make sense of it? Have we all reviewed that data? Has any of us made sense of it at all? You can speak.
Okay. I don't really understand what you said makes sense. I don't really understand.
Okay, what I mean, that's for you, right?
Yes.
Okay, so if you don't understand what makes sense, is that have you been able to familiarize yourself with the data itself? Try to understand what is being, like, the basics of the data itself. So this is an HR data. One of the best ways I use in analyzing data is to use the headers like this to understand at a quick glance what this data is all about, right? So I can do that. I can do that by, one second, do this. Try to see what the headers are looking like here, right? Just to have an understanding of the data. So the first thing I would do, as someone who would want to teach you to make sense of this large data sets, which I think it's a bit large, but you have to see a practical demonstration, is that I want to get a summary data of this data. So all I need to do is come and click on this place here, click here, this arrow to select everything about my data. Click here, and I'll go to Insert, right? And I'll click on Pivot Table. And I'll select that table, and I'll say New Worksheet, and I'll click OK. So let's say I want to see the way the age group of everybody that is an employee with this HR data set. All I need to do is drag and drop. I will drag this age group into a row. You can see that it is beginning to bring out the age group here. And under this age group, let's say, do we have anything like gender? I'm not sure if we have gender. Do we? Yes, we do. We should have gender. And I say, I want to see a breakdown of how many people are female or male within a specific age range. I'll drag this to my column. You can see all of that here, right? And how do I count? I know that I have a constant number I can use to count, which is my employee ID. So I'll drag my employee ID to my value here. And you can see that it's giving me the total number of female between the age of 18 to 25 working with this HR data. And you can see that we have about 80 male. In all, for that age range, we have about 123. An addition of 43 plus 80 is giving us 123. So that is one way where we can use pivots to get summary data information on certain data. You can see that how this data is so large, right? I just made a quick summary of that data right now. Isn't that so beautiful? Right? So now the next thing I also want to show us is how can we even make a graph out of this, right? Like we want to do charts, make it more meaningful for people to be able to understand that data from a visual perspective, right? All I need to do is select this, and then I go to Insert again, and I can click on any of these charts. I think I would prefer this one. And can you see? It's giving me a comparative chart of the same data. So you can present this data to your top level executive for them to understand. And again, if I want these numbers to show on top of this column, just to make it more visible, all I need to do is I'll come here and I'll say add data label, right click, and I'll say add data label. And you can see that it's adding data label to each and every one. I'll right click on each of this column and say add data label. So you can see that if I want to present data, I shouldn't even be presenting these numbers to them in this table. I should be presenting this visual way. Which one would you prefer? This summary table or this one? Can anybody?
The graph one, sir. This one, the graph one.
The graph one. Okay,
Yes.
let me ask someone else. Which one would they prefer?
The pictorial one. Pictorial picture, the one showing the graph.
The graph.
Yeah.
So why would you prefer that one?
It's easier to understand.
Yeah, and it's easier for you to explain and for them to understand.
The graph shows the analysis.
It shows all. It shows both the graph and the figure, what you're trying to communicate. So it's like all in one.
Exactly. So it's trying to communicate this table, and it's also trying to communicate it in form of graph, right? That, oh, between the age of 26 and 35, we have plenty male. You understand? And this HR data also reflects a few things about workplace as well, right? So you can be able to separate that. So on that note, I think we've been able to achieve that 1 hour, 30 minutes that we planned for this class. So we are at the top of the hour. And so I am open to questions if anyone has any question they want to ask. There's plenty more tricks, right? Plenty more tricks, things we can do in Excel, right? That we've not even, I would say that what we've done right now, we've not even done 1/4 of 1/4 of 1/4 of what is possible in Excel. Right? So there is so much to learn. But I just thought we could share this data and then see how we can interact with it. So anyone has any question? It's an open mic. Feel free to ask your question. There are some information here that I would say that you should try to also try to sign up if you want to get the recording of this class. I know some of you might want to get recording of this class, so I will tell you to please sign up to see how you can get recording of this class. I'm posting it in the chat here for those who are private chatting me. So are there questions? Questions? Should I call your names out? If you have questions, let's interact. Abiodun, let's interact. Abiodun O, Oshubanjo, let's interact. Adi, Feintolar, Adidamola, Adiola, Aditoye, Eniola, Agnes, Ayo, Daniel.
Recording aspect.
Huh?
The recording aspect you said you're going to post. The posting of the recording aspect. I didn't see it.
Yeah, I just posted it in the chat now. So I just wanted to call your attention to the bootcamp, which we'll have starting by May. But for this free information session, it will still continue by April 26th. That's in 2 weeks' time, about this time, where we'll be examining and using another tool just for you to see how you can use it.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, the question is how can you get an Excel application on Windows 10? He just responded to you, sir.
How can I get an Excel application in Windows 10? Yes, you can. You can. You can in Windows 10. Yes. Virtually all the formulas that I applied, that I used, is what you can use here. So in case you do not have it and you still want to practice all of this, you can do it there. And I can, if you want me to show you a practical example, I will quickly copy my Excel sheet. Do I still have my Excel sheet open? So I have my HR Excel sheet open. I will copy it and I'll bring it here and I'll paste it. So you can see the same data here, right? That I pasted. And all I need to do is I can come and I can do a pivot table, right? Inside this place. And if I do a pivot table, I can add age group to my rows. I can add, in fact, this one gives you more flexibility. It can allow you to do it by ascending or descending, right? Also, and in my column, I think, what did we add in the column? Gender, right? In my gender, I can add gender to the column. And in my values, I can add my employee ID, which will run the count for me. And you can see that we have the same thing here. And if I also want to do anything like add a chart or something, I can come here and voila, see my charts. I can choose the type of chart I want. It could be this chart. I can come here and I can choose the same kind of chart that we used earlier, which is this one. And I can come and I can say, I want to add my data, what do they call it? You add my data stuff to it. I'm trying to find that here. I'll find it later on. Yeah, I found it, data label. I can say I want to add my data label to this. Add my data label to this as well, and add my data label to this. You can see that virtually everything I did in Excel, I just did virtually the same thing here in Google Docs. And this is free. As long as you have a Gmail account, you can do all of that. So I hope you see the possibility based on your question. So even if you don't have a Windows and all you just have is a browser, even from your phone, which I usually do not appreciate or tell people to do, is you should be able to do this on a browser. At least everybody has Google Chrome, or everybody has, what do they call this guy now? Microsoft Edge or Mozilla Firefox and things like that. Yeah. So Zubi, I hope you're good.